Just a few minutes ago, a series of powerful explosions occurred in Iran against the backdrop of previous statements that the United States of America is ready to attack the Ayatollah regime as early as this weekend. Right now, a series of explosions has rocked the city of Parand, after which a significant part of the settlement was left without electricity and columns of black smoke can be seen in the sky. Moreover, it was a series of explosions with intervals of several minutes, after which the Iranian authorities immediately cut off communications and the internet, but footage of these explosions still made it online. At the same time, a new wave of student strikes and anti-government protests began in Iran. In particular, on Saturday, February 21st, students from several universities took to the streets to protest. At the same time, information emerged that another round of negotiations between Iran and the US could take place as early as next Friday, and today's explosions might have been a warning. And now it is being reported that Trump has been offered options for an operation to eliminate Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and the entire clerical leadership of Iran, which would allow avoiding a major war. And then suddenly, Donald Trump's envoy, Stephen Witkoff, surprised everyone by saying that he genuinely doesn't understand why Iran still hasn't capitulated in the face of such a powerful military threat from the US. Trump was betting on intimidation, and Witkoff is genuinely surprised why this bet still hasn't worked. My name is Alexei Pechi. Let's discuss this topic together. But before we start this episode, I ask you to subscribe to the channel, like this episode, and leave any comment under it. Also, subscribe to my channel. The link to the Peachy News Telegram channel is in the description of this video. There we post breaking news as it comes in, and all the announcements for episodes on this YouTube channel are also posted there, so I'll be glad to see you there. So, today, February 22nd, a series of explosions occurred in one of the Iranian cities, which caused a fire and a power outage. In particular, a series of explosions occurred in the city of Parand, which Iranians managed to record and even upload online before the authorities shut down all communications. According to preliminary information, the explosions were heard in different parts of the city at intervals of a few minutes. And now eyewitnesses claim that shortly after that, the electricity in Parand was cut off, street lighting went out, and the power supply to residential buildings stopped. Some users also report disruptions in mobile communications and internet service. Parand is located southwest of Tehran and is one of the fastest growing suburbs of the Iranian capital. That means it's very close to the heart of the Ayatollah regime. In recent years, housing construction and energy infrastructure have been actively developing here, which makes power outages particularly noticeable for local residents. And it's worth mentioning here that earlier there were reports that Russia began actively evacuating the families of Kremlin diplomats from Iran. It is reported that the day before, two Il-76 planes of the Russian Ministry of Emergency Situations urgently departed from Iran and headed to Moscow, carrying relatives of employees of Russian diplomatic missions on board. Later, Sweden, Germany, and Poland recommended that their citizens urgently leave Iran due to potential security threats. At the same time, amid expectations of a possible military strike by the United States in Iran, new student strikes and anti-government protests began. According to the Wall Street Journal, citing video recordings, on Saturday, February 21st, the first day of the new academic semester in Iran, students from several universities held rallies, chanting slogans in memory of those killed during the suppression of the January protests and condemning the actions of the security forces. Let me give a few examples here. At Tehran's Amir Kabir University of Technology, protesters dressed in black chanted, "Long live the Shah," referring to the heir of the last monarch, Reza Pahlavi. At Sharif University of Technology, there was even a clash with members of the Basij paramilitary group, which is a wing that is part of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. And students also held sit-in strikes at Tehran University of Medical Sciences in solidarity with the prisoners. In addition to student actions, Iranians use other forms of protest, in particular, almost every day. Recently at sunset, slogans of "Death to Khamenei" are heard from balconies, and mourning ceremonies on the 40th day are turning into political demonstrations. And in a number of cities, school strikes called empty desks were also held in memory of the students and teachers who died. And it's worth noting here that Donald Trump himself, not so long ago on February 19th, stated that Iran has 10 to 15 days to make a nuclear deal, threatening very bad things otherwise. And this is where things start to get really interesting. Axios reports that American negotiators are ready to hold another round of talks with Iran as early as Friday, February 27th in Geneva, if they receive a detailed Iranian proposal on the nuclear deal within the next 48 hours. According to American officials, the current diplomatic efforts are the last chance that President Trump will give Iran before launching a large-scale US-Israeli military operation, which could be targeted directly against Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. Therefore, today's explosions in Iran may serve as a warning to the Ayatollah regime that the threat is very close. And this doesn't necessarily mean direct bombings using aircraft, ships, and so on. This is important, and I'll explain why now. One of the sources from Axios says that the Pentagon provided President Donald Trump with a variety of options for action against Iran in case the nuclear deal fails. And one of them includes the elimination of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and his son Moshtaba, who is considered a possible successor to his father. They decided to remove the leadership entirely. At the same time, two other officials from the Trump administration told Reuters that planning for an operation against Tehran is already at an advanced stage. Among the options being considered are strikes against specific individuals from Iran's leadership and even an attempt to change the Ayatollah regime. However, the sources could not specify which individuals might become targets of American strikes or how the US military plans to carry out a change of power in Iran without deploying large ground forces. And again, today's explosions may have shown that Israeli and US agents might already be inside Iran and that carrying out such sabotage is not a problem. At the same time, it is reported that Donald Trump is preparing a large-scale operation lasting several weeks, including strikes on the centers of power of the Ayatollah regime. Foreign Policy magazine had previously reported that Washington is considering a scenario of decapitating the leadership in Iran. They wrote that the US is preparing possible targeted strikes against the top of the regime, including Khamenei, as well as key military and political leaders, nuclear facilities, and communication hubs. In addition, last week Trump publicly spoke about the possibility of regime change in Iran, stating that it could be the best option. Trump refused to name the person he would like to see leading Iran, but noted that, quote, there are such people. But in fact, the White House surprised everyone today in this regard, because such confusion is happening now. Stephen Witkoff, in an interview with Fox News, complained that Donald Trump is intrigued as to why the Iranian government does not give in to the demands of the United States of America, despite the mobilization of American troops in the Middle East. And next, I will give you a quote from Witkoff. You know, I don't want to use the word surrendered, but why haven't they surrendered? Why, under such pressure, with so much naval and military power, they didn't come to us and say, listen, we declare that we don't need weapons, so here's what we're ready to do. And, you know, that's what surprises me the most. I mean, Stephen Witkoff is not the first one to say something like that. Earlier, for example, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State of the United States of America at the Munich Security Conference, said that it's a huge mystery to him why all of Europe isn't applauding and going wild over Donald Trump's super genius idea for Ukraine. Well, just hand over the entire Donbass to the Russians, and supposedly the war will stop. But in reality, going back to Stephen Witkoff, I'll note that for the Iranian authorities, the issues being discussed, like the civilian nuclear program, missile potential, proxy forces, and so on, which the Americans would like to minimize, are everything. And all of this is the cornerstone of the Ayatollah regime's existence. Obviously, in terms of military strength, Israel and the US, even separately, significantly surpass Iranian forces. But the White House still can't understand that it's impossible to speak the language of logic with autocrats and dictators. Dictators like Khamenei or the bold Vladimir Putin are ready to destroy their own people by the millions. They are ready to drive their people into total poverty, to spend millions on missiles and weapons just to preserve their regime. They absolutely don't care about their own nation. They simply don't care about the losses as long as they can keep their power for at least another year. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to this channel, give it a like, and don't forget to hit the bell so you get notifications about new releases. If you found this episode useful and interesting, you can support the work of this YouTube channel financially. You can do this through your donation or a paid subscription using the links and details in the description of this video, as well as the QR code on your screen. I will be grateful for any support you can give. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.